नमस्कार प्रोफेसर तनवर जी और श्री चावला जी जो यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं, इनका और धर्म और प्रफुल्ल केतकर जी ऑर्गेनाइज़र के जो बैठे हैं, और आप सब गणमान्य व्यक्तियों को मेरा नमस्कार। मैं इंग्लिश में बोलना चाहता हूँ, सो please accept me in whatever. So it's my privilege to be with you. It's my privilege to be in this gathering because I'm used to speaking with doctors. I'm used to speaking professionally with doctors, and this is a very different gathering for me. And I do occasionally speak about 1857, and I've been part of the research of on 1857, in which we researched at Tope and on 1857. So it's really my privilege and honor to be with such special, distinguished people on the stage and in front of me. So what I'm going to talk about is something which is different, right? So it's what we call the Forever Nation and the 1857 and the Anglo-Indian War of 1857. It's a war, so that's what I'm going to speak about. This is a very bold and audacious statement I'm making. It could be very brazen that I'm making, but let me explain. No other land, no other place in the world has an unbroken continuity of its land, its people, and its stories. No other place in the world. If you look at Europe, the history changed, the stories changed with Christianity. If you look at the Americas as they were conquered by the white man, their stories changed, the Native American stories changed. If you look at China, with the advent of Buddhism, their stories changed. Stories changed everywhere. We are the only place on this earth which has an unbroken continuity of our stories, its people, and its land. We are the only one. Let me first give an explanation about the author over here. An amazing poem by Allama Iqbal. An amazing poem, just that he left his ideals in 1900 after he wrote this poem. So what he writes, now it's very poetic, but let me just say that, right? Yunan और रुमा और मिस्र मिट गए जहाँ से अब तक मगर बाकी है नामो निशा हमारा कुछ बात है जो हस्ती मिटती नहीं सदियों रहा दुश्मन दौरे ज़मा हमारा. Now he wrote this and then he was recalled in England. He was recalled there, he spent 2 years there, and he forgot his Tarane-e-Hind, and he started writing Tarane-e-Milli. But that still doesn't take away the beauty and what he said about this nation, and that is what I'm going to talk about. Now he says that यूनान और रुमा और मिस्र मिट गए जहाँ, लेकिन अभी भी कुछ बात है जो हस्ती मिटती नहीं है. He says that, and when does he say that? He says that 50 years after we are defeated. 50 years after he's defeated. So either he was just very poetic in his writing, or there was something more that he could see at that time. And that is what I would like to say. Now, he says about Greece, he says about Yunnan. So let's look at Yunnan. Many of us know about Troy, the history of Troy. So we all, the Helen of Troy, she was the daughter of Zeus. So we know about history, we know about the Trojan horse, we know about all that, right? Now, that is how important Troy was. That is how important Troy was. And we also know that the Trojan horse and how the Greeks went and captured Troy. Now, Troy was mentioned in Iliad. Now, Iliad is often compared with Mahabharata, and it was written in 500 AD. And in spite of all this glorious past, till 1871, people did not know where Troy was. This description of whatever important history, people did not know where Troy was. Until some German discovered it in 1871, and then he found out where Troy was, and it was in Turkey. Now compare this with something which happened in 1990. In 1990, the Archaeological Society was doing some excavation in Uttar Pradesh. And they were excavating, and they found some artifacts which dated to Mahabharata period, 4,500 years ago. And after being very excited about this finds, they went to the locals and they said, this is where, this is what could be very important. You know what the locals said? ये तो हमें पता था, ये काम्पिल्य है, यहाँ पे ये राजा द्रुपद का ये किला है, हमें पता था. Now, just contrast Troy with Kampilya. This is what living history is. This is what the continuity in our historical stories and the land and the people exists. What happened in Troy was after, in 400 AD, the stories changed to Christianity. The stories changed again to Islam when Turkey became Islamized, while we are the only place where the story continues. 19 centuries after Alexander came to defeat India and went back defeated and retreated, no matter what we are told about him. And this is paraphrased, his retreat is paraphrased as he retreated due to the demand of homesick troops. That's what is the official explanation given for Alexander's retreat. It's not accepted that he lost and he went back. So 19 centuries after that, our traditional civilization adversaries, Europe, different parts of Europe, gathered to suck blood out of India, the place which had 30% of the world's GDP. This is a standard. Information that exists. Madison. It's an old information. We can see that how from about 25% to 2% at the beginning of last century. So 25% was India's contribution to the world's GDP, and it fell to 2% in the 1920s. That is what the loot was. That is how much the destruction of this nation was, not just your Kohinoor Hira. This is what the blood sucking of this nation was. If you see the graph, there's a slight rise in the graph in between the 16th and the 17th century, and that was a spark of light. Our seas, which were being raided, we started protecting them. The Samudris or the Zamarins protected the Kerala coast. Shivaji protected the northern western coast. He controlled Surat, and which was under the control of Mughals, and then which had the Mughals had leased to the Europeans. His 88 ships protected our trading routes, and towards the end of Shivaji's rule, he actually went and protected our Tamil Nadu coast. That's where he protected. Later, the Marathas protected the Orissa coastline from Europeans. The only unguarded place that was left for the British to colonize was Bengal. And we'll come see why Bengal wasn't protected. And this all comes under the Royal Charter of Queen Elizabeth I in 1558. If you see, the money that they got was from drugs. They were drug dealers. The land that was under control of during British period in India under opium cultivation was more than the Kali cartel, the opium cartel, the Kali cartel of South America and Afghanistan 2006. It was more than, and we are talking of 1820s, 1830s. That was how big drug dealers these guys were. Now, we all know Thomas Macaulay. We know him for the wrong reasons, but we also know this is what Thomas Macaulay said. The effect of this, that is English language, on Hindus is prodigious. No Hindu who has ever received an English education ever remains attached to his religion. It is my firm belief that our plans on education are followed up. If our plans are followed up, then there will not be a single idolater. Now, this could be just Thomas Macaulay. This could be just him, right? One person. You can't hold that against one person. Now, this is the official statement. Now, if you read the small print in the bottom, this is the Manual of British Government in India, page 73-74, published in 1857, and I'm quoting. By identifying the interests of natives with our own, by extending them to them such mental illumination as such enable them to appreciate and participate in our administration, and above all, by exhibiting them to the practical superiority of Christianity in its social influences, we shall most effectively perpetuate our dominion and fulfill the legitimate functions of a government. This is the government statement. So about freedom. Now, historian Amar Farooqi, when he wrote about Baizabai Shinde, he said that Tatya Tope, Nana Sahib or Lakshmi Mai did not wake up suddenly to 1857 and, you know, let's mutiny, let's do something. They didn't do that. There's some planning. Even Amar Farooqi says that. So the original co-conspirator of the 1857, if I can use that word, co-conspirator, was the daughter-in-law of the mighty Mahaji Shinde, who defeated the English in the First Anglo-Maratha War of 1775. That was his daughter, Mahaji Shinde's daughter-in-law. After 1857, the English captured a guy called Sitaram Bawa, and Sitaram Bawa was tortured, and then he had a full testimonial. And in the testimonial, he says that the original conspirator, the original person who had thought of all this was Baizabai Shinde. Sitaram Bawa says something about two mysterious things that happened before 1857. And he says that, and I'm quoting Sitaram Bawa, he then took the seed of the lotus or kumul called makhana and made an idol of it. He then reduced the idol to very small pills, and having made such immense number of cakes, he put a pill in each. As far as those cakes were carried so far, the people would determine to throw off the company Raj. So what he's saying is that there's something which happened before that. It was a planned war, and it's something that was going to happen, and it's to do with the lotuses and the roti. So many of you, I'm sure all historians here know that. So two very mysterious and strange phenomena happened about 9 months before the 1857 war. Very strange things. And the British knew it, Indian historians knew it, everyone knew it, and no one had analyzed it until we started researching on it. So what happened was, about 9 months before the war started, runner, someone from outside, would come with a red lotus flower, and he would give it to the subedar of the regiment of the native infantry which existed. The subedar was an Indian, so always an Indian. So the subedar, what he would do is he'll take that lotus from the runner who's brought it from outside. He'll take that lotus, he'll line up his soldiers, he'll give it to the first person. The first soldier would pluck a petal and then pass it on to the person behind him. This would happen. At the end, the last soldier would bring back that lotus stem, whatever was left, and give it to the subedar, who'd hand it toward the runner who came. Now, it was an open thing. Everyone knew what was happening. The British couldn't understand it. No one could understand it. The second strange thing that happened was, a few months after this, that a runner would come in the Doab area, between the Ganga and the Yamuna. A runner would come and he would give a roti. He would give a roti to the mukhya, and the mukhya would then eat it. His wife would eat it, and she would make 3-4 more rotis and pass it on to the next village. Now this was a chain. It wasn't random villages that we went to. It was a chain of villages that it went to. And the British looked at each roti. There's no message, nothing in that. And they would just say, one of those superstitious, and it was related to some Balin and whatever. So this is what would happen. Now the interpretation is that each lotus, coincidentally, just each lotus flower has 25 to 30 petals, and each platoon in native infantry would have 25 to 30 soldiers. So what would happen is that the remaining stock was a count of the number of people who would mutiny on our side and would fight for us. So Tatya Tope and whoever was behind the planning already knew how many people were going to fight on our side. That was a numeric count of whatever it was. Now, if you look at this, this is the this would be a typical logistic movement in the 1850s. There would be camp followers, there would be horses, camels, elephants, mules, there would be hospital stores, wines, medicines, blah, 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 tents for officers. If you look at this list, there's something which is very missing. There's something missing, if you can do it. And the missing thing is, who fed them? Who fed the soldier who mutinied from the British side to the Indian side? There is no list of this in anything. No historian had looked at who fed the Indian army after they mutinied onto the Indian side. Soon after 1857, 1 million man-miles our Indian army marched. No one knows how they were fed. How did our supply lines look? If you look at this, this would be the 17th Native Infantry's march from Azamgarh to Faizabad during 3rd and 8th June 1857. If you look at the path, this is exactly the path where the rotis had gone. So what were the rotis? Were actually a message to the local villagers to say, something is going to happen, please stock up. Now, if a village is only 500 people and 5,000 people start marching through it, if they did not stock up enough food, who would feed the army? So our food lines were the villagers themselves. Now, who were the leaders of 1857? Mahaji Shinde, after he won the first Anglo-Maratha War, had a very beautiful plan. What he did was he put the Mughal emperor as a titular head, Shah Alam II. He made Shah Alam II as a titular head. He gave him a pension of 13 lakh rupees a year, and that was what Mahaji Shinde did. That's what Nana Sahib did. Made Bahadur Shah Zafar a titular head of India, as the Badshah of India. So that was our titular head. Then we had Nana Sahib, Baizabai Shinde, Begum Hazrat Mahal, Nawab of Banda, several kings who were there. The Kamal Ka Fool and Roti was probably Azamullah Khan, Nana Sahib and Tatya. There was a yagya made so that our messengers and our spies could freely go, because the yagya was like an official religious statement. And that was arranged by Baizabai Shinde. And the money came from Nana Sahib and the Scindias. Now, on 25th August 1857, just before Delhi fell in the middle of September. So on the 25th of August, there was an Azamgarh declaration made by the Bahadur Shah Zafar's grandson. And he made a declaration in which he said there's 3 points: economics, personal freedom, and political freedom. So he said unfair taxation, monopolization of trade, impact of industrial decline, denigration of public servants, and stifling of individual freedom by imposing Christianity. That's what the official declaration of the 1857 Proclamation of Freedom. So basically it was, you help us to get political freedom so you can enjoy economic and personal freedom. War was declared 10th of May. Large parts of India were free. Delhi was free till middle of September. Large part of India was free. What did the English do? The best they could, and whatever they always did. It was a very chilling response. It was what we call nowadays human shield. That was a defensive response. What they did was they put their own women and children amongst their own soldiers. Nana Sahib was forced to, his hands were tied. That's what the English did. And then the offensive response was also very chilling. There wasn't a tree along the Ganga where there was no dead body hanging. That's what they did. And these dead bodies were of the people who had fed our soldiers. It wasn't just random killing. It was a strategic response. It was every village, whoever had fed our soldiers, that was the response. So our supply lines disappeared. And they got bored. So what they did was, the hanging guys, the British soldiers, they created different ways of hanging so that Indians died a merciless death. The most and that is what a figure of 8 is. So that's what the figure of 8 campaign was. Now Tatya Tope had to re-engineer the war. He didn't envisage this brutality of the English. So now we're coming to middle of 1858. So what, at this stage, the money was running out. So the money came from the Gwaliors, from the Scindias, from the Shindes. Contrary to whatever is said, right, contrary to the standard narrative about the Scindias, let me just give you a different narrative about it. The Ajay fort of Gwalior falls twice. This is an Ajay fort, it just fell twice, right? And Baijabai Shinde and Jiaji Rao, the then king over there, they orchestrated drama in which they give their money and their entire soldiers to Tatya and make it look like it was their defeat. That is what they did. Now this money that Tatya got was very important for the next stage, and that is what keeps the forever nation going. By this time, the English had brought 70,000 troops just to behind Tatya. And this is what the path, I mean, as Ashutoshji said, 150 battles, right? So these, I mean, we've plotted many of them. So these are just the different places where these 70,000 or whatever number of soldiers were behind Tatya. And Tatya's job was just to ignite India. This is what the different things was. And finally, there was success. There was success in a different way. Of the 3 points that the Azamgarh Declaration was, that Tatya's victories forced the British to concede something, accept something, give up something. This is what happened. And what on the 1st of November, what they did was they accepted that the state will have no interference in the matter of a faith. With this achieved, some of the leaders like Nawab of Banda said, okay, we've accepted, we won't fight with the British. Tatya Tope marched on. So 1st of November 1858 was the day when our personal freedom, when Christianity as it was used as a state machinery, stopped. And our stories which are thousands of years of old, continue. And we are here because of that. The money came from Leonine, the money came from pragmatic patriots. And just coincidentally, on the same day, Tatya Tope crossed the Narmada. He crossed the Narmada. I'm sure the decision in the British was taken much before that, but he crossed the Narmada. So if you look at who are the faces of freedom, you would have Leonine leaders, and you would have pragmatic patriots. So the money that came to Tatya so that we can still be the forever nation came from pragmatic patriots like Baijabai Shinde and Jiaji Rao, and the Leonine leaders like Nana Sahib Bahadur Shah and Tatya Tope. Thanks to all of them that we are here still to tell the story of this forever nation. Bengal famine. Now there's something for us to know, right? The deception. The deception, right? And this is something to do with Subhash Chandra Bose ji. The Bengal famine, something unknown, the Bengal famine of 1770. You know the reason why the Marathas couldn't go to Bengal? Because the British created the Bengal famine. The Bengal famine was created so that Mahaji Shinde couldn't march there. That's why the entire Indian coast was protected except for Bengal. And what they did was millions of Indians were killed in just a famine so that Mahaji Shinde's troops couldn't march there. The figure of 8 campaign was a mass genocide of feeding villagers in 1857 so that Tatya Tope's army couldn't march. And the Bengal famine of 1943 was created only to stop Subhash Chandra Bose's army being fed by the locals once he was coming inside. This is what famines are made for. 18 February 1946, the liberation of India. The naval mutiny which struck the entire coast from Karachi to Rangoon. The entire coast was under naval mutiny. Everyone, and all of them were Subhash Chandra Bose's, inspired by Subhash Chandra Bose. And the British Union Jack came down, and Subhash Chandra Bose's Azad Hind flag flew over these ships. Just 88 years after the Anglo-Indian War of 1857, freedom was at our doorstep. Thank you very much.